Welcome to Hockey Wiz Talks podcast. In this podcast, I'll be doing an update on the Semifinals playoffs in the NHL. In this podcast, I will give a quick update on the Semifinals series in the NHL Playoffs and the active scoring leaders remaining in the playoffs. In the Eastern Conference Semifinals between the Washington Capitals and Carolina Hurricanes, the series is tied at 1. Carolina dominated Game 1 of the series, outshooting the Capitals 33-14, and beat them on faceoffs 55.6% of the time. Logan Stankoven tied Game 1 midway through the third period for Carolina, then Jacob Slavin scored an OT to give the Canes a 1-0 lead in the series. Game 2 was the Tom Wilson show, where he was without a doubt the best player on the ice for either team, as he finished the game with a goal and an assist, along with 2 hits and 2 blocks. Although Washington did win this game, it's worth noting that Alex Ovechkin did not play a ton in the third period when protecting the lead. We will have to see if this trend continues the remainder of this series. The series now moves to Carolina for Game 3, which is on Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. In the other Eastern Conference semifinals between the Toronto Maple Leafs and Florida Panthers, the Toronto Maple Leafs lead the Florida Panthers 2-0. Game 1 of the Leafs-Panthers series did not disappoint, and it had everything that you would hope for in a game between these two teams. Toronto jumped out to an early lead and at one point had a 4-1 lead, but the Florida Panthers came roaring back, but they would eventually end up falling short of a comeback 5-4. The biggest incident in this game was the collision between Sam Bennett and Anthony Stolarz, where it appeared like Bennett's elbow made contact with Stolar's head, but no penalty nor suspension was given out. In the aftermath, Anthony Stolarz was ruled out with a concussion until further notice. Joseph Woll got the start for Toronto in Game 2, but this game was not about him. It was about the contribution by Toronto's role players, as Max Pacioretty and Max Domi both had a goal and an assist to lead Toronto to a 4-3 win. For Florida, the third line for Florida with Anton Lundell centering Brad Marchand and Eestu Luostarinen was their best line all game long. The series now moves to Florida for Game 3, which is today at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And now a word from our sponsor. Check out my scouting blog at hockeywiz777scouting.com. Listen to my scouting blog podcast on podcasters.spotify.com/pod/show/hockeywiz777scouting. In the Western Conference semifinal series between the Winnipeg Jets and Dallas Stars, the Dallas Stars lead the series 1-0. What on earth is going on with Mikko Rantanen right now? He just might be the hottest player in the NHL right now. He just scored another hat trick in Game 1 of the semifinals between the Stars and Jets. Rantanen now has 8 goals, 6 assists, and 14 points in the last 4 playoff games. Jason Robertson returned to the lineup for Dallas, while Mark Scheifele returned to the lineup for Winnipeg. However, both Miro Heiskanen and Josh Morrissey remain out. Jake Ottinger was stellar in the game for Dallas, turning aside 29 of 31 shots. Game 2 will be today at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time. In the other Western Conference semifinal series between the Vegas Golden Knights and Edmonton Oilers, the Edmonton Oilers lead the series 2-0. The Edmonton Oilers trailed 2-1 heading into the third period against Vegas in Game 1, but in the third period, they scored 3 unanswered goals to win the game 4-2. Zach Hyman scored the go-ahead goal late in the third. Interesting stat about this game is that the Oilers dominated the faceoff circle, winning 63.5% of draws and outshot Vegas 28-17. Vegas only had 2 shots 5-on-5 in the last 2 periods of the game. In Game 2, Edmonton trailed 1-0 until 11:31 of the second period when Jake Wallman scored to tie the game at 1. Then Vasily Podkolzin and Darnell Nurse scored to make the game 3-1. William Karlsson scored before the end of the second to cut the lead to 3-2, but Evander Kane scored to give Edmonton the 4-2 lead. Vegas came roaring back though, as Victor Olofsson scored his second power play goal of the game, and Alex Pietrangelo scored to tie the game up at 4. Despite a 5-minute power play in overtime, the Oilers failed to convert, but they still managed to come away with the victory thanks to a Leon Draisaitl game-winning goal. Calvin Pickard was much better than what the stats suggest, and he made many game-saving stops when needed. The series now moves to Edmonton for Game 3, which is on Saturday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Check out my hockey blog at hockeywiztalkshockey.blogspot.com. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram at hockeywiz777. The Edmonton Oilers lead the league in goals for versus goals against, averaging 4.50 goals for per game versus 3.75 goals against per game. Next best team is the Toronto Maple Leafs with 28 goals for versus 23 goals against. They average 3.50 goals for per game versus 2.88 goals against per game. Carolina is third in the league with 22 goals for versus 15 gols against. They average 3.14 goals for per game versus 2.14 goals against per game. Washington also has 22 goals for versus 15 goals against. They have similar averages to Carolina. The next best team is Florida with 26 goals for versus 21 goals against. They average 3.71 goals for versus 3.00 goals against. Dallas has 24 goals for versus 26 goals against. They average 3 goals for per game versus 3.25 goals against per game. The Vegas Golden Knights have 24 goals for versus 28 goals against, which is a 3 goals for per game versus 3.50 goals against per game average. Dead last in the league in the playoffs is the Winnipeg Jets. They have 23 goals for versus 30 goals against. They are averaging 2.88 goals for per game and have yielded 3.75 goals against per game. Special teams is very important come playoff time. Let's see where each team ranks in the playoffs. Dallas has scored on 32% of their power plays and have killed off 88.5% of their penalties. Vegas has scored on 32% of their power plays and have killed off 83.3% of their penalties. Florida has scored on 28.6% of their power plays and have killed off 88.5% of their penalties. Toronto has been excellent on the man advantage, scoring on 28.0% of their power plays, but their PK can use some improvement at only 75%. Carolina has been excellent on both the power play and on the PK. They scored on 28% of power plays and have killed off a staggering 95% of penalties. Washington has scored on 22% of their power plays and have killed off 72% of their penalties. Both aren't really good. Edmonton have scored on 27.5% of their power plays, which is pretty good, but they only have a 59.3% success rate on their penalty kill, which is awful. Winnipeg doesn't have a good penalty kill, nor do they have a good power play. They have converted on just 19.2% of power plays and have killed off 75% of their penalties. Carolina is first in the league in terms of shots per game versus shots against per game, with 34.9 versus 25.6. The next best team is the Edmonton Oilers, having generated 34.5 shots per game versus 28.5 shots against per game. Vegas did pretty good in generating shots, having generated 30.3 shots per game versus 27.3 shots against per game. Winnipeg did solid as well, having generated 28.1 shots per game versus 23.8 shots against per game. Florida generated 26.4 shots per game versus 23.1 shots against per game. Dallas did not do a good job of generating shots. They generated 26.3 shots per game versus 34 shots against. Surprisingly, Toronto only generated 25.1 shots per game versus 25.1 shots against per game. Washington is dead last in terms of shots generated per game and have 29.9 shots against per game. Winning faceoffs is key in the playoffs. Let's see where each team ranks in terms of faceoff wins percentage. The Toronto Maple Leafs are first in the league in terms of faceoff win percentage, 57.8%. Next best team is the Vegas Golden Knights with 51.5%. Then you have to go to the Carolina Hurricanes with 49.9%, Dallas with 49.7%, Edmonton with 48.9%, Washington with 48.4%, Winnipeg with 47.5%, and Florida is dead last with 46.1%. Listen to Hockey Wiz Talks podcast on Podbean and Spotify. The active point leader remaining in the playoffs is Mikko Rantanen with 15. Connor McDavid has 14. Leon Draisaitl and William Nylander have 13 apiece. Kyle Connor has 12. Dylan Strome and Mitch Marner both have 10. Sebastian Aho and Evan Bouchard have 9. The goals leader in the playoffs is Mikko Rantanen with 8. William Nylander has 6. Leon Draisaitl and Andrei Svechnikov are tied with 5. And there are several players with 4 goals, including Alex Ovechkin, Sam Bennett, Kyle Connor, Rope Hintz, Matthew Knies, Connor McMichael, and Evan Bouchard. The assist leader in the playoffs is Connor McDavid, who has 12. Leon Draisaitl, Kyle Connor, Dylan Strome, and Mitch Marner all have 8 assists. William Nylander and Mikko Rantanen have 7 assists apiece. Austin Matthews, Brad Marchand, and Sebastian Aho have 6 assists. The plus-minus leader in the playoffs is Jake Wallman, who is a plus 11. Eestu Luostarinen is a plus 9. Brad Marchand and John Carlson are plus 8. Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, and Jacob Chichurin are plus 7. Connor McMichael and Anton Lundell are plus 6. The player with the highest points per game in the playoffs is Mikko Rantanen, who has a staggering 1.88 points per game average this postseason. Next is Connor McDavid, who has a 1.75 points per game average. Then Leon Draisaitl with a 1.63 points per game average. William Nylander also has a 1.63 points per game average. And then Kyle Connor has a 1.50 points per game average.
Check out my travel channel at youtube.com/HockeyWizTravels.
It's gonna be interesting to see how the rest of these series play out and see who advances to the Western Conference Finals.